a space for bold conversations about leadership, coaching, and the culture required to build organizations that actually work. Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad that you're here. Today's conversation is about executive coaching as it's actually showing up inside organizations right now, not in theory, not in buzzwords, but in real life. Coaching is changing. AI is part of the landscape. Expectations are shifting, and at the same time, the human side of leadership has never mattered more. So instead of talking about coaching at a really high level, we wanted to create a space for an honest, practical conversation about what's working, what's evolving, and what leaders and organizations are really needing from coaching today. I'm joined by three experienced coaches who work closely with leaders inside complex environments and who see these changes up close every single day. I'm really excited about our panel, and I would love to give them an opportunity to tell you more about them. So, would you guys introduce yourselves?
Yes, sure. I'm Barbara. I'm an executive team coach, and I basically help leadership teams think better together, especially when things get messy.
Thank you.
My name is Cheryl Haynes. I'm an executive coach and organizational effectiveness consultant. I work with senior level leaders and teams in terms of their thinking as an enterprise intelligence. I also work with leaders that are looking to expand their impact by working with a coach as a thinking partner. And so I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I am Kim. I'm an executive coach. I'm also an ICF PCC assessor and coach mentor. I've been coaching now for 9 years, edging on nearly 10. My background was in corporate finance, and I work with people who tend to be either on the cusp of being demoted or promoted.
Thank you so much, Kim. Let's kick it off with a question that I think is going to get the ball rolling for the rest of the questions we're going to discuss today. From where you sit right now, what feels different about coaching in organizations compared to even just a couple of years ago?
Well, I'm seeing one important development that coaching is actually moving from, or it's then more better described as a shift. It's moving from preparing people for a new role. That was often the case when people were either sent to me or came to me. It's now more often about leaders either in a new role or in the existing role, but they're operating in a space that's changing at a frantic speed. And that speed is really faster than they can make sense of what is happening in the system. And so this is really a shift for me, that coaching used to be about development, about something nice you'd give for somebody. And now I see it as part of how organizations actually orient themselves in uncertainty. So how they make decisions, how they adapt, and how they stay coherent amidst all this uncertainty.
That's a very interesting change. Thank you.
Yes, I too would say, as Barbara had mentioned, that it is less about development and performance enhancement and more about enabling leaders to engage, inspire, and influence change within organizations. And so the focus being more on situational awareness, relationship building, and influence in order to innovate. And so that's where I would say that that things have changed over the past few years. The speed of change and decision making has been lightning fast, and strategy half-life is even shorter than it's been in the past.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I'm seeing the individual perspective. It does seem to be crisis mode. from what we're stepping into is they are barely surviving, and they want to be thriving. They seem to have higher targets, they seem to have bigger teams. There's so much change, as both Barbara and Cheryl have attested to, that is just so difficult to keep up to speed with, on top of the huge demands that they have as an individual. So I think finding yourself in that system and getting to grips with that system, as well as your own workload, as well as your own behaviours, mentally, physically, all of those changes that need to go along with it. So I did take a slight different twist on it, but there you go.
Absolutely. Well, what I heard across all three of you was the word change and the lightning speed at which it seems to be rolling as opposed to years before, which leads me into our next question, because I'm not sure anything is moving quite as fast as AI. Let's talk about that. A lot of people, are super curious about AI, especially in the coaching realm. It can feel very abstract, though. In your work, where are you seeing AI actually helping? And then where do you see where the human coach matters more than ever? So that's kind of a, I don't know, both and or either or. So to talk a little bit about AI and then talk about where that human coach is really mattering.
Well, AI is really good at pattern recognition. So actually using AI for that is really great, because AI can detect patterns, especially over time, that we humans would be unable to notice. Or if you're working with a great amount of people in an organization leading through a transformation process, then having AI following along and detecting pattern is something that's really helpful. It's just very important to keep the data security and ethical behavior in mind. So I personally use it for transcribing coaching sessions. That is saving me a huge amount of time, and I see Kim nodding there.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, it also had a side effect, because first I was just thinking about the time-saving component, and that's what many people do when they start implementing AI, either time or cost saving. But then I also noticed that if I have a good transcription of the session, I can also throw in an evaluation transcript and have the AI check along the PCC markers and see how well I did as a coach, which is great, because right after every session, I can see what went well, what I could have improved, and then even get some suggestions of what I could have done differently. And that is really a great thing to keep my coaching skills sharp. How I also use AI is I use a coach bot, a secure one, not ChatGPT. And that's just great to in between coaching sessions with a real human, to just co-think about things together and reflect. And currently I'm testing with a group of individuals how to use an LLM with a specific knowledge base in a secure container, how we could use that to follow along with leadership development and people reflecting and learning from that closed off specific LLM.
Wonderful. What about that human element? Where does the human coach matter more than ever, in your opinion?
Well, I think AI can simulate empathy. So that's for sure. If I'm tired as a human, the AI model might even do a better job. But real empathy, I mean, real human connection, this intuitive bond between people, presence, that's what actually helps people to grow and develop. And that's something you can't have from an AI. And I don't think in the near future. And of course, then everything to do with somatics right now. So to locate sensations in our body, or to feel what it's like in constellation work, that's something AI can't do yet.
Well, thank you. That's very insightful.
I would actually say, again, similar to Barbara, that AI is an appropriate reflection tool. Although the clients that I've worked with, their organizations are still trying to sort out how to use AI as an organization. And so I don't run into the use of AI frequently, but I would say that the value of the human element of coaching has to do with the fact that leaders really do appreciate the opportunity to run scenarios by someone with an objective review of what's going on. Also, the way in which a scenario occurring within a leader's life lands in the ear of a coach gives them the opportunity to probe and to test assumptions that I don't believe would be possible for a leader just putting a prompt into it to try to glean what the next best thing to do would be. And so I see the the AI human element as a great opportunity to reflect potentially on things that you would like to discuss in a safe space with your executive coach, with that human element of listening for nuance, dynamics that occur within your organization so that you can get to the right solution and approach for yourself as a leader.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant answers. Tiny bits to add. So I like Barbara as well. I do use it to capture the essence of sessions. Confidentiality, completely key. There's no linking to organizations or clients. I think it's really important. I think it's very good at capturing the objectives, the learnings from those sessions, but it's important to remember that AI is rather judgmental and it can make assumptions. So providing that data is on a transcript versus, what your reflections are from the session, I think that's okay to do. In terms of the human element, humans can't be replaced in terms of picking up on those nuances in behavior, what you're seeing in the body language, what you're seeing in the sensing, being able to mirror what it is that your client's doing, whether that's in tone of voice or visually. AI cannot tap into that in any way. Again, it's very, very useful, but I think it's really important to note that, if you're using AI as a coaching tool and you're just typing in your brain dump, shall we call it, if you're typing that in, it could be that you're coming from a negative landscape, and AI is very, very biased towards the positive, which again can be a useful tool. I find myself, when I'm using it for my own benefit, I ask it to be critical because I want something to be critiqued and to see that other side of things and the different perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you. I think AI is one of the most talked about things in the coaching world in some ways. I listen to a lot of webinars. Everything you've said, extraordinarily insightful. Thank you very much. I bet everyone watching were hanging on the edge of their seat with that question. How coaching is, we said change with question number one. We just moved into AI. So coaching is becoming more accessible and more scalable. With help from tools such as AI, for instance. So, what do you think is important to protect so that the work of coaching doesn't lose its depth and its integrity?
Yeah, indeed. I'm noticing that with this AI-based coaching, we can reach clients that were before unreachable, at least in a corporate context. So right now, I'm setting up a program with apprentices, and these wouldn't receive executive business or business coaching. They wouldn't have received that before. And with these new coachees receiving coaching, I find it more important than ever to always be contracting, because you never know what shows up. There are these common misunderstandings, what coaching is and isn't, and you can clarify that with people, but you never know what kind of misunderstandings will show up. So once I had a client, and that wasn't apprenticeship coaching, but actually very high level coaching for department heads. And we had done all the contracting, the role clarity, what coaching is and isn't. And all of a sudden, during the town hall, he was a little bit nervous, and he tried to make a joke. And he said, only the department heads are going to get some coaching, and it's not therapy. And he tried to be funny, but of course, in that instance, psychological safety vanished. And you couldn't prepare for that. I mean, no amount of contracting could have prevented that. But you can fix it, because you can still recontract and see, well, now that that's happened, what do you want to do about it? And so in that case, it really worked well, because I had a one-on-one with that leader. We then thought together what to do about it. He decided to come back to a second town hall, explained what had been going on for him, his nervousness, his sort of uneasiness about therapy and coaching, and is it the same, even though we had sort of intellectually gone through that. And it was beautiful, because all of a sudden the contracting person also stepped into this place of the unknown, and that made coaching all more valuable than it was before. So I think even with people who have never heard about coaching or have really strong misconceptions about what coaching is, you can still learn along the way.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I would say what's most important to protect in terms of the discipline and expertise of an executive coach is to ensure that leaders understand that it is an impact amplifier, that this is not just about delivering on goals that you've set up for yourself or your annual performance review. This really is an opportunity in a safe, non-judgmental space for you to practice and experiment with ways in which you want to show up as a leader, where there is no consequence other than someone who is 100% in your corner and is there only to ensure that you get the best out of yourself and the thought process that you have. And so really keeping the thought partner safe space to learn and grow element of coaching, I think must be protected.
Thank you.
So I looked at this through a couple of different ways. So, ethics, need to be there, whether that's your personal ethics, whether that's you abiding by a professional body such as the ICF or the EMCC, that confidentiality. If that wasn't there, or that's not even shared with me at the beginning of the session before I divulge everything that's going on for me, that it's not going to be as worthwhile at all. I think with the credentialing, that we are moving in a really positive direction there. So we are perhaps one day a regulated industry. But yes, for you to be able to check out as an individual or as a client, and for you as a coach to know that you've got the credentialing required to be in that space, because as we know, lots of things can be thrown at us. I've had a couple of clients that have had those coaching platform contracts, and they've had some of the sessions with that, and they're just not as invested. They're disengaged with it. They tend to be really short sessions. They've got these goals and lists of stuff that they have to pull off, and that just doesn't feel as valuable, doesn't feel as genuine. So AI can't show all these meaningful things in coaching as that one-to-one person can be, and as I think I've said before, I think it can become quite dangerous.
Thank you. That was that particular question brought out a little bit of different answer from each of you. Thank you very much. I can tell that you're coming from a little bit slightly different angle in your careers, which is super helpful on this panel. Thank you very much. So when you have seen coaching really working inside of an organization, what do you notice is different about how people lead and work together when that coaching is really working well?
Well, when it's working well, it's less about an individual receiving coaching and developing as an individual, but actually it's how these people start using their environment not just as a performance management system, but as a learning system. So I typically, in my coaching journeys, I work with a leadership assessment, a 360, and that sort of serves as a leadership MRI. So you sort of get to where the pain points are. We then identify the biggest lever the coachee wants to work on, or if it's an executive team, the whole team wants to work on. And then we turn it into behaviors, observable behaviors. And then the fun bits actually start, because they collect, well, through surveys, but they collect feedback from their relevant stakeholders on how they're doing with regards to the behavior they actually want to change. And it's often just small changes, not interrupting others in a meeting, or just asking more for feedback, or whatever it is. And then you don't just have 5 executives involved, but all of a sudden you have 30 people involved in this collective learning process. And I like that this really makes change visible, because it's not just the coachee reporting back to what they did or what's happening from their point of view, but it's really a whole system starting to observe what is changing.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
I've been fortunate to work with tech leadership teams, and what I've noticed is that there becomes a clarity in how the team will engage. There becomes a comfort level with being honest and candid. The definition of consensus is less about getting everyone aligned and getting many people involved in the decision, more about looking for win-win solutions and thinking through the potential trade-offs that should be made within the vertical of each leader in order to maximize their decision making as an enterprise leadership team. And so that's where I really see the value in working with intact senior leadership teams, is that it gives them license, similar to what Barbara was saying, to engage with each other in a candid way, to challenge their assumptions, and to think as a collective, which is actually always better than coming at or approaching something new with a singular mindset. And so really that growth mindset, engaging each other thoughtfully, but challenging each other respectfully to get to the best solution for the organization.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a firm believer that coaching should be accessible at every single level in an organization. But as it often happens, if you're only working with one executive, it is like a domino effect, and you do affect the system. It's a much more gradual process if you're not working with the whole executive team. I too work in a very similar way to Barbara. I have an interview-based 360, get all of the nitty-gritty, all of the information that you need to know, and that's reflected to the client in a compassionate way. And then you've got a really good platform along with using the psychometrics. But what I tend to find, even after 1 or 2 sessions, and if I am actually physically inside the organisation, well, some of those 360 people will start to engage with me, and there's such a difference. It's huge. Generally around the open communication, they're not being as directive, they're not micromanaging or whatever it may be, those little nuances that come up, and they're able to influence, they're able to affect change, but collectively as a group, versus it just being an order from the top. So they influence, and the connectivity and increases accountability, along with many more things. But it's a beautiful process to see.
It really is a beautiful process from how each of you described it. It sounds really amazing when you can experience how coaching has had such a positive impact. So, this leads us to my final question. If you were talking to a leader who's considering coaching but feels unsure where it really helps, what would you want them to understand about the benefit of coaching?
Welcome to my world. Yes, well, most leaders, especially if they're unfamiliar with leadership, I mean, in the formal way, if they're come more from an engineering background, and I have a physics background myself, so that's why I work a lot in this tech area. So those people care a lot about getting ahead, making progress toward goals. And that's fine. And usually this getting along part, so this relationship quality, leadership effectiveness dimension is also seen, but it's usually not developed in a structural, systematic way. Rather, you'll have some offsites and you'll maybe do some archery together or drink huge amounts of wine in the evening. And that might help people getting along better, but it doesn't really improve coordination and leadership effectiveness. And research actually shows that 40% of performance differences come down to leadership effectiveness, and that can be measured. And of course, people who like KPIs and like measuring and analyzing things, if you show them that you can actually measure that nowadays, that is, and coaching is actually the modality that is the most effective learning path to improve leadership effectiveness, that then makes sense to them, even if it's something they may not have heard at all before.
Thank you.
So I would say if a leader was considering working with an executive coach, coaching is no longer looking for performance elevation. It really is an opportunity for you to work with a thought partner, to develop a trust relationship, and to be able to look around corners, have someone who can observe, listen to nuances, understand the dynamics in which you're operating as a leader, and really help you to elevate your thinking in a way that isn't possible for you to do otherwise. A leader is a lonely game sometimes, and it isn't always easy to share the challenges that you're having or the concerns that you're experiencing, because you don't want to open yourself up to judgment of people while you're working through a scenario or a solution. And so working with an executive coach really is that safe space for you to bring the outside in, learn a perspective from someone who has a different experience than your own, but to work with someone who is 100% committed to your success and is looking for every opportunity to position you as best you can in terms of your impact as a leader in your organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I like to express to potential leaders that I'm working with that it's, you know, a space to think, it's a space to feel, it's a space to process, to learn, to voice, and you're able to do that with somebody that's completely unbiased to the organisation. Well, at least you would hope. You know, that it's a space to get challenged, it's a space to experiment with what they're thinking, which they may never have divulged before, which can be really, really helpful to be able to air that. And it's not about the coach providing the answers, as you know, everyone seems to think it is, and we're constantly coming a butt against that.
Thank you so much. You know, as we wrap up, what I'm really taking away from this conversation is that while the tools around coaching are changing, and in some cases changing rapidly, the heart of the work really hasn't. Leaders still need space to think, to be challenged, and to grow in ways that actually stick. I'm so grateful for Barbara and for Kim and for Cheryl for joining us today and being part of this honest and practical conversation and share their own real world perspective. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. These are exactly the kinds of conversations that help coaching continue to mature and stay meaningful inside organizations. Here at Delenta, we care a lot about supporting these kinds of thoughtful human conversations around coaching, and we're glad that you can be a part of this today. We hope you'll join us for future panel discussions.